Hello, everybody, and it's me again, and we're going to talk about the coding part. Okay, and this is the fourth video. I know I've been taking my time in explaining these, but I think it's quite important that you have a solid understanding before we move on. After that, things hopefully will move a lot faster than this. Okay, so what we had before, we had the storyboard. This is the storyboard. This is what we designed the screen. This is my first screen that will main storyboard. This is my first screen that I'll go to. And then we have, if we click on the code assist, what we did is that we connected the things on the screen. This is my view to the model, okay? These are my code. This is the code that I'll be working with, all right? And we have a label. We're gonna use it for output. We have a text field. We're gonna use it for input. Now, we have other things here that are important. Things are, for example, view did load. We have things like did receive memory warning, all right? We have in object-oriented or in programming, usually you have something called a function. A function is a piece of code that, like a segment program, if you will, or a small program that you can send information to it. It does something and return it back. In this case, we have customized functions that we want to do, and we have functions that exist for us. And then we have these functions that, notice it says override function view did load. Well, what are these? Okay, let's take a look at the standard code, and let me explain them to you in more details. Here we have a class. This is the name of the file name. You can see file name and the class usually the same thing. And this is the parent of that class. A parent of a class means that it, like in inheritance, like you can say in object-oriented programming, is that you can inherit from parents, okay? So in this case, we have a type of a class called UI view controller, and this class is a child of this, or this is a super type of this class, okay? So what are we doing here? These are the output that we created. Think about them as variables, special type of variables. And then we have functions that came with this class. This class is called override view did load, and override function did receive memory warning. The word override means that this function already exists in this class. All right, and that's why you can see word like sometimes you see override. So yeah, this function exists here, but I want to have my own view did load, so I can customize it, all right? It's a difficult concept if you don't know object-oriented, but we will talk about object-oriented in other lectures. I have the same thing, receive memory warning. So what are these two functions? One function is that when you first launch your application, okay, when the application is actually loaded into memory, or this class, sorry, loaded into memory, what do you want to do? First thing we do is that we call the view did load in the parent class. So we have super.view did load. So I'm calling the parent class view did load because maybe it's doing some setups, cleaning up, or whatever, all right? So I'm calling the parent class just to be on the safe side, the view did load. And the same thing with the receive memory warning. The receive memory warning, it get executed only if you're running out of memory. So you can have some safeguards not to, so you don't have your application crashing, you want to save stuff, or you want to clean things up, whatever, right? So you do that in this receive memory warning. I have not used this quite often. I haven't used it much, really, because the way it depends on how you design your application. But this is the one that you would use quite often, all right? And we have these functions that we're going to take a look in a minute, all right? Before we move on, there's another class that is important to us, which is here, the app delegate. What is this app delegate? In a summary, we're not going to mess with it right now, but this class is the class responsible for starting your app and doing things if your app it goes in the background, or you are working on the app and then you receive a phone call. So you have different functions for different scenarios that happens with your app. For example, here's when you first launch your app. What do? Here's when it becomes inactive. You're on the you're working on the app, and somebody, you got a message or you got a phone call. Here's when your application entered background. That means you hit the home button and it's sitting in the background. Here, when it becomes active again and it enters the background. All right. So, and here's when you terminate. So what are these functions? These functions are for you to customize and do things with these functions as you need to. All right. So that's the beauty about this app delegate. All right. I've used it quite often, and mainly this one here. And when it becomes active again, or when it enters the background, so you can save information and then retrieve them back. All that stuff can happen in this class. All right, let's go through our class. And I'm going to show you this view did load, what happens with it. We have two outlets, okay? Two labels, one or two outlets. One of them a text input and one is a label. So if we want to say something in the label when we first start, okay, so I can say LBL output dot text equal, please enter the value above, all right? Something like that. So what happens first is that when you first run your application, it goes to this view did load and will update. If you look at the storyboard, right now it says label. So if I run it, it will say enter value above. Now, where did that come from? It came from the code that we just did. Here it is, right? So enter value above, all right? Okay, so that is that's how you do the output, okay? Or how do you interact with this outlet. Usually, if it's a label, we mainly use the text. Of course, you can change the background color, all that stuff. You could do it in here. So, and then you can do the same thing with the text field. You can say txt input. I'm gonna set it equal to 0, and all this is a string. Okay, it's not a numeric value, so it's a string. So all of these are strings. So you can say txt input.text equal to 0. Now again, what happens is that when you first run your application, one of them will be 0, the value above the text field, and then the other one says enter value above. You got it? That's how it works. All right, so we have a function here, which is convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. I'm gonna pause for a minute. I'm gonna go get the equations because I don't remember them. And then we'll put them here, and then we'll do the programming to show you. All right, hold on. All right, I went and got the equations, and let's continue with this code. So the first function, the name of it is convert C to F. These are custom functions, and they are actions. Okay, so that means they're connected to something on the screen, a button or a controller on the screen. So the first equation, we want to convert from C to F. So Celsius to Fahrenheit. So this is the equation. So what do we need to do? I'm going to put the storyboard here, and I'll show you. We'll do the code assist and do it together at the same time so you can see what's happening. So I have, this is my text field, txt input. This is my label. The output will be here, but the input will come from here. Now, as I said in the earlier, all your controls here are actually text, all right? So yes, you might be entering number, but you will have to convert them. So let's take a look at, we need to define two variables first. So we say int or var f equal to 0. Usually it's a good idea to initialize them. And I'm gonna define these as double because we will have decimals, all right? And again, var c as double, and then we're going to make it equal to 0 again. All right, so what are we going to do here? We're going to take, before we continue, you get these warnings sometimes. And the reason you're getting this warning means they're not errors, they're warning, is that you click on it, says you defined a variable, but you have not used it, all right? Or you have not initialized it or put values in it. This warning will disappear when we actually start using these variables. And the reason you get this warning, because the device has limited amount of memory and you don't want to be defining things and not using them, okay? Because you're eating resources from your phone. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say F. First, we need to get the value. Remember, we're converting from C to F. So we need to get the C value. So C equal to what? Now I can say txt input dot text. All right. What does that give me? That will give me the value from here, but it is in a text format. Or how do I convert it from a text format to a number, to a double? Well, remember, we did that in the playground. We can say double and cast the value, try to convert that value, all right? All right, so you get an error here. And as I said earlier, the best thing to do when you get an error is that you click on the error and see what is that error, and don't try to guess it. So if you click an error and says, wait a minute, this text field is an optional, okay? This is an optional variable. This txt is optional, or actually the double is optional. So you could, there's two optional variables here. This, you might have a value in it or might not have a value. And then the result of this conversion actually might not work. You might not get a value, you might get a null. So it was telling you to fix it, you need to put this exclamation mark here. So you can do this first, and that would fix it, okay? We might still have an error for this one too. It says, wait a minute, this text field here, you'll notice it's an optional variable here. So you might actually have a value or not. So what do I do? Again, you just simply click on here and say, fix it, and that would solve that problem. All right? That's all you have to do. If you have optional variables, the first thing you do is click on this error and it will help you solve those errors. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is that we have the equation. We say F equal to the equation says C multiplied by 9 divided by 5 plus 32. All right. Now, this here might sometimes not work properly because this would say this is an integer, so you will get an integer. So maybe you should put 9.0, 5.0, just to make sure to force it to become like a double over double or a float over float. Okay, so you will not get 0, and then or 1 point, only 1. And then the next thing we need to do is that we need to produce the output. And then we have the label, which is LBL output.txt equal to what? This is that label. We're going to write here something long, so I'm going to go back to standard editor and then click on the view controller here so you can see the whole line. So what I'm going to do is that we're going to say equal to, remember in the playground, we did some printing, right? Well, printing is the same thing as putting it in a text field. So what do? You say here slash C, okay, which is this value that we got, equal to what? And then we will put the sign C. So value like 5 degrees Celsius would equal to, I'm going to say here the value F, all right? And then we will say 5 degree, Fahrenheit. Okay, now we're going to do the formatting later on when we get to formatting. So you might not get zeros, but we'll see how it works, okay? So this is Celsius, Fahrenheit, Celsius value, C equal the value that get converted. So that's all you have to do. Now, if you run it, let's test it. Okay, we have a 0 already. So 0 in Celsius equals 32 in Fahrenheit. So if you click on that, 0 Fahrenheit, oh, we got we got an error. What that should say, 0 Celsius equals 32 Fahrenheit. Okay, so we got to fix that problem here. All right, this is that problem here. Okay, we run it again. And then we should do this, and then 0 Celsius equal 32 Fahrenheit. If we put a different value here, notice the keyboard, this is an input text field. When you click on the keyboard, this would be the topic of next video. So what happens is that you can actually change it to numeric. So if I type in 5 Celsius and do this, 5 Celsius equal 41.1.0 Fahrenheit. And you can try different numbers. For example, 35. Oops, that's a lot. I don't think you can live this temperature. But anyway, you can do 35, then convert, and then you get a different Fahrenheit temperature. So these don't work, of course, because we haven't done anything with them. All right, so how do we do? You got the equation, so you can do the rest. Now let's do the miles. You can copy the same thing here because miles are almost the same process. You have input and output. So I'm going to convert kilometers to mile. Command V, and from here you can say, instead of Fahrenheit, you can say this is kilometers, this is miles, and this is, so we're converted from kilometer to miles. So this is kilometer value, and here this is miles, and kilometers to miles is easy. You take the miles, the kilometers, and you divide them by 1.6. Okay, and then here you just need to change, this is to kilometers, and kilometers equal, this is miles, and then here is miles. Okay, if you want to do this, km, and then you can do miles here if you want. Oh, it's actually more descriptive. And that's all you have to do. So if you run this, and you type in here, let's say 100 miles or 100 kilometers, how many miles are these? See, this is hidden, but we will work on this in the next video. We got a problem here, right? Or is it kilometer to mile? That's the first one, so we're lucky. Okay, so if I click on this, 100 miles equals 600 kilometers equals 62.5 miles. All right. And you can, of course, type in different numbers. 50 kilometers, 31.2 miles. All right, the other way around, all you have to do, you just take this code, copy it, and you reverse it. Instead of dividing it by 1.5, you actually multiply it by 1.5. So we're almost done with this application. Okay, so this is a useful app that allows you to convert. If you want a quick conversions, instead of looking it up on the internet, or you can download an app, but this will be your own app. You can customize it the way you want to, and you can easily convert between Celsius and Fahrenheit and kilometers and miles. All right. If you want to summarize what we've done, okay, we talked about the outlet. We talked about the view did load, and the view did load is the one that get executed when that screen is loaded on the screen when this controller is loaded first on your device. Okay. And we got custom functions, and the receive memory is that this get executed if you run out of memory. And again, this is not, you don't use it a lot, but if you want to make sure that your app doesn't save in all scenarios, you can put stuff in here. These are the custom functions that we did. We talked about getting the input, finding the variables, optional variables, remember these, Okay, the best thing to do it is click on the error, make sure that, and follow the suggestions. Okay, your equations, and this is your output. And this process is repeated anytime you're doing some calculations. Here's we have miles to kilometers to miles, same process. We just changed the equations and changed the output message. Okay, we talked about the app delegate. The app delegate is quite important, and this is where everything starts and where everything ends. So all your application, if you want to do things when your application first starts, you could do it in here. When you want to do things when the application terminates, you can do things here. In the meantime, if you put it in the background or you received a phone call while you're working on your application, you do it in these functions. And this function is very, very important. This class. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to handle different type of text and how we hide the keyboard and control the keyboard, when to show and when to hide. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.